Yes, welcome again, everyone. Today I'm going to be doing part 2 of my presentation of points that I'm recommending to Pastor Papu to look into. The background basically is that I saw a video by Pastor Papu, as I explained down here in this paragraph. And in this video, he was talking about the Trinity, and the video is titled Dr. Jong-P Papu, Trinity in the Adventist Church, where he describes the Trinity as it is taught by the Adventist Church, and he uses a number of points that are the usual indoctrinated points of explaining the Trinity, including a lot of lexical arguments about the Hebrew and Greek words. So that video is I found it on Facebook. I think you can search it and find it if you want to see the context to which I'm responding. I did a first video which is called Some Points for Pastor Papu to Consider, Part 1, and that one is allos. It's talking about allos and heteros as they are used in the Trinity indoctrination defense. That video is available on YouTube. You can find it, the first one that I did. Now this is the second one. But by way of introduction, I'm saying here that, I trust that there's no preacher who would stop his listeners from searching to check if what he's saying is truth or not. I mean, that is what the Bible tells us to do, and anybody who believes in the Bible would want to see his listeners doing that. For if they do that, and if it is the truth, they are going to be convicted in the truth. But if it is not, then they are going to be having some challenges with what is taught. So, and that's Acts chapter 17, verse 11, where Paul commends the Bereans for checking what he was preaching to them, and he does not commend the Thessalonians because they didn't do the same. So he commended the Bereans for going to the scriptures and checking to see whether what Paul was saying about this Jesus Christ that he was preaching was in fact the truth, and that is a good thing. Before I get into the meat of the day, just want to reiterate that we all have access to these materials. So when some theologian or some pastor goes around and preaching, and they do a good job many times, using the Hebrew and Greek words that they say, oh, Greek is saying this word, this means that in Hebrew and so forth. That information that they're using is not, something that is only available to them. It's available to anybody. Anybody can look for that information and find it and study for themselves and see whether really is it true that the Hebrew and the Greek means what the pastor is claiming, as we are going to see in this presentation. So today I'm going to focus on the word Elohim. I think I'll do another video focusing on the word Echad, which he also uses, which is from Hebrew. In this video, Pastor Papu claimed that Hebrew word Elohim, used in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, that is the Hebrew Shema, is a plural word, and that since it is plural, God used this word to imply that God is a plural person, whatever plural person means, made up of several persons. Pastor Papu goes further to say that the word Echad means one entity made up of constituent parts, and therefore God, by using the word Echad in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, is emphasizing his plurality again. Now, this is a standard argument. If you have had a chance to defend the Adventist doctrine, as I have many times, and when you're defending the Trinity, these are the points that you use. You open Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, and you read and you say, look, the word for one there is Echad, and the word for God there is Elohim. Echad means one, which is made up of several parts, and Elohim means, it's a plural for God, and therefore God is talking in plural and is saying that, he is a plural person made up of several persons. That's the argument. That's there. So we want to test that claim, those claims. And like I said, I used to use them, but I want to test them now. Are they true? So today we'll just focus on Elohim, like I said, because we don't have time. I don't want to make this too long. Now, I present my presentation in this form because just in case you're not familiar with my accent, it doesn't come out well in your speaker, or for some reason you cannot understand what I'm saying verbally, or maybe I'm moving too fast, which I sometimes do, you can always stop the video and read it for yourself. And if you write to me, I can also help you with some more information. And in the event that you want to write to me, you can use this email here. Okay, so it's the rockfortress@gmail.com. So you can use that. You can reach me and give me some comments and feedback. Now, let's just reiterate about the truth. The truth is very important. Firstly, the truth sanctifies. That's John 17:17. Secondly, God is worshipped in truth and in spirit and in truth. That's John 4:23-24. Thirdly, those who will be triumphant, those who will, overcome, in their mouths will be found no guile. That means they didn't tell lies, they didn't deceive with their mouths. That's Revelation 14:5 and 1 Peter 3:10, because we know where lies come from and where deception comes from. And fourthly, the Spirit of God is the Spirit of truth. That's John 16:7. That's the Comforter. And the truth is such that there's no lie that is of the truth. That's 1 John 2:21. And lastly, Christ himself is the truth, and there's no lie in Christ. That's John 14:6 and John 14:6 again. So here, if there's any lie about the Trinity, if there's any lie about it, even one lie, okay, then all of it goes to the bin, because it is based on one lie, and there's no lie that is of the truth. There's no lie in the truth. The truth must stand on things that are true and that are only true, and nothing else. So I'm going to suggest that there are 5 ways we can test when somebody says something about Hebrew, and in this particular case about the word Elohim. There are at least 5 ways we can use to test whether that is true. And when you apply those 5 ways, you're going to see how each one of them progresses to show whether something that is in Hebrew or Greek is true. So I want to use those 5 ways to see whether Elohim is used in Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4 in the Bible, and also Elohim is used in the whole Bible, is as Pastor Papu claimed. The first way of those is to consult the Hebrew speakers, of course, but you need to do that with a caveat, knowing that languages change over time. So what may be strictly or clearly understood today by those who speak Hebrew today may not be how exactly it was used in 1445 BC. That is the time when the children of Israel came from Egypt. That's about 3,500 years ago from where we are today. Things may have changed a little bit. So there's another way to look at that, to triangulate the information you get from Hebrew speakers. You can also consult the Hebrew English dictionary, which most of us have access to if we just search online, the Strong's Concordance, for example. But still, that is very modern. So instead of that, we can then compare, we can add another triangulation or another comparison using how Elohim is used across the Bible. So that is good, because Elohim is used according to the Bible gives you an understanding of how the writers of the Bible at the time that they wrote, like I said, about 3,500 years ago to a bit later, how they used Elohim in the Bible give you an understanding. And then the 4th way that you can use is to use proof text method. That is to say, you compare one verse with another, which are talking about the same subject. And the last, of course, is logic. Is it logical? Is it reasonable when somebody says a Hebrew word means this and means that? So let's start with consulting the Hebrew speakers. You can find any person who speaks Hebrew and ask them. I know a few myself, and I've talked to them, not specifically about Elohim, but at least I could do that and get some insight from them if I wanted to. Maybe you have the same chance. You can do that. But you can also consult their website. There's so much information about Echad and Elohim and so forth. This particular website I shared here is in this particular page, it is talking about Echad. You can look at that also and see what they are talking about and understand, the debate about this point. and choose your side. I think it is important for you to dig into the debate yourself and not wait for someone else, your pastor or theologian, to dig into the debate on your behalf. Go into it and see what are these people arguing about, and I'll give you my side of the story as I understand what is the argument all about, looking at of course what Pastor Papu presented. Then we go on to the second way is to consult the Hebrew English dictionary. In this case, the Strong's Hebrew lexicon, what it says about Elohim. So Elohim as a word is coded as H430, and it is defined here as the plural of H433. That is gods in the ordinary sense. So it is an ordinary sense of a meaning. But when in an extraordinary sense, if you like, or a specific use is of that when it refers to the plural, to the supreme God, and it is used in that plural form. But sometimes it is also used as a way of deference or a reverence to magistrates, and also as a superlative that is to express the power of certain beings, including angels, God, goddesses, gods, and judges, and so forth. It appears in the KJV, that is the Old Testament, 2,601 times. So we don't have a lack of evidence about how Elohim is used and what it means. And the Strong's Concordance goes on to say, when it is being used in the plural sense, it refers to rulers, judges, divine ones, angels, and gods. But when it is used in a plural intensive with singular meaning, it means God, that is the one true God or the supreme God of heaven. So here are the sources if you want to check it out for yourself, and there are many more you could use. So we see here that Elohim refers to God in a singular sense, that is as a numerical singular, but with the utmost reverence. This is true in other languages as well, and I just want to compare this with other languages because in the English sense, I don't remember any case where you apply a plural word to a single person. If there is, maybe you could explain to me or remind me. But there are some languages, like the language that I speak myself, where you can use a plural noun and referring to one person who is not plural at all. So I'll give you an example of, let's say we have a man called Mr. Smith. He's one person, numerically singular. There are not three people in him. He's not a combination of people. He's not a 3-in-1 or 5-in-1 or whatever. It's just 1-in-1. And this Mr. Smith, if you wanted to say it in my language that I speak, one of the languages that I speak, which is Shona, you would have to add, if you wanted to respect Mr. Smith, you would have to add VA at the beginning as a prefix to his name. So it would sound like Va Smith, right? You probably have heard of Mugabe. You'd call Va Mugabe, which means you're respecting him with a pluralizing prefix to his name, right? But he's still one person. So that plural prefix does not make it 2 people or 3 people. It remains one. But my point is the reverence or the deference is demonstrated by making the noun plural or sound plural, not singular. The same thing again if you use the word mukuru, and this is true, I'm sure also in all the other Bantu languages as well, at least many of them. I know it the same can also be said in, say, in Ndebele or even in Zulu. So when you say mukuru, that's one elder. The word mukuru with an MU there, it's a singular, numerically singular, one person, right? But if you're talking to one person, when you have many elders before you, you can call them vakur with that VA again, which is a pluralizing prefix. That means many elders, more than one. Yet at the same time, if you want to reverence one elder, you can still call him vakuru when he is one, okay? And whilst you call him vakuru as a plural word referring to one person, you will still go ahead and construct a sentence in the singular. So you're going to be calling him his as pronouns, even though the noun that's referring to him has been pluralized That is a sense of respect which is embedded in the language according to the grammatical rules. So the idea that Elohim, although plural, is a singular meaning and is a word of deference or respect or extreme reverence is not unusual in other languages, as it may be unusual in the English language, and therefore may be difficult for those who are reasoning from a purely English point of view to understand the meaning of Elohim in the sense of a plural word that is with a singular meaning. So that's my point. So the idea of having a plural word having a singular meaning, as the Strong's Concordance explains, is very simple and clear and straightforward. But it appears to me Pastor Papu did not consider this point, that the plurality of Elohim, according to Hebrew grammatical use and the dictionary, as it says there in the Strong's Concordance, does not imply a plurality of persons or three in one. It simply means it's a statement of deference or reverence. The third way of looking at this is to look at how Elohim is used across the Bible. And I'm going to have a few sub-points here. The first one is conjugation or sentence construction. So we can test how a word is used by how it is, constructed in a sentence. Consider a simple verse that demonstrates, grammatical construction. For example, 1 John 4:6. It says, "We are of God. He that knoweth God heareth us." Obviously, John here is speaking on behalf of many people, and who is speaking on behalf of. He's speaking on behalf of all the believers. And although all the believers, which he is part of, and he's saying we together, united together, we are of God, although they were all united in unity, as they were instructed by Jesus in his prayer in John 17:11 and 21, that they will be one, and as is confirmed in Acts chapter 4, verse 32, that they were of one heart and of one soul. Regardless of that, when John is speaking about them in that unity of many persons, he refers to them as we and us, and uses the plural word are. We are of God. He doesn't say we am of God or something like that. He continues to use only the plural because there are many people, even though they are united. If John was speaking of himself alone, he would have said, "I am of God." Okay, "He that knoweth God heareth me." Then he's talking about one person. Okay, that's the normal construction of a sentence. So in other words, the conjugation tells us whether one is speaking of a singular person or one is speaking of many people. When speaking of many people, of which you are part of those many people, you use we and us. But when you're speaking of one person and you're only yourself, then you use I, me, is, and so forth. At no point does it make grammatical sense for one person to use a plural if he's one person. Neither does it make sense for a united group of people to use a singular when there are so many of them, simply because they are united. The unity that exists between them is not a numerical issue, therefore it doesn't affect the construction and the use of the terms when referring to them. Now let us look at how sentences are constructed using Elohim. And there are many verses. I only picked one here. Numbers 23 verse 19. God, Elohim, plural. In other words, God is not a man that he should lie. So he's talking about one person with is, and compares that person, God, with a one man. So this one man is compared to one God. This one God is compared to one singular person, and the construction of that sentence is completely singular because there's only one who is being spoken of. So the idea of three in one in this is very difficult to find. You cannot find it unless you're looking for it with it already in your hand, in your head, and you want to put it into the word Elohim. But in the sentences like this, you cannot see that idea at all. So these words were said by Balaam, and he was talking of one singular God, and he had one God, a numerically singular person in his mind. But some want us to believe that Numbers 23:19, Balaam is saying, Elohim, gods, are not men, that they should lie. But that's not what it means. He's talking about one person. The point is grammatical construction using plural or singular does not depend on the composite singularity but on the numerical singularity. Okay, the fact that people are united, there are 3 of them or 4 of them who are united, does not cause one to use a singular pronoun or singular construction of a sentence to refer to them. That is not how the languages are used, not even English or Hebrew, and I want to suppose many other languages as well. So, for example, a chairperson is speaking on behalf of the committee. They are all united in their decision, whatever they've united to decide. When the chairperson stands up and he starts talking about the committee, it's we as a committee, we've done this. He doesn't say me as a committee. It doesn't make sense. He's not the committee. The committee is made up of many people. But the Trinitarian reasoning is trying to tell us that a person, when a chairperson stands up, is supposed to say me, the committee. That's not how language works. So you'll notice that Elohim is always used in a singular sense construction with the words like he, him, is, and so forth to demonstrate that the person who is talking or writing in the Old Testament in the Hebrew is talking about one numerical person. Another point under the use of Elohim in the Bible, which I want Pastor Papu to consider, are these. Many others, like Pastor Papu, claim that the plurality of Elohim is a special meaning that applies to the plurality of God. They almost make it sound like there is something in Elohim that is designed to refer to God in plurality. But is that true? Is there something special about plurality, meaning of the plural meaning of Elohim as a word? As we saw before, the word Elohim has a range of applications. Consider these examples of the use of Elohim. In Exodus chapter 7, verse 1, and the Lord said unto Moses, see, I have made thee a god. That word God there is Elohim. It's in plural. So Moses, one man, was made a gods, if you want to use the Trinitarian reasoning, he was made a gods to Pharaoh. And Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. So we see here that there's no intention to tell us that Moses was made up of 3 in 1. Besides, it also has no intention to apply the word Elohim as a special word to God, because it also applies even to Moses. Its meaning is determined not by itself, that it is a plural word, but by how and where it is used according to the rules of grammatical construction in the Hebrew language. So notice that Moses was called Elohim. That's God's, translated God there, by God himself. So if God had chosen in Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4 to use Elohim to express his plurality, why would you use the same word to express singularity in Moses? It doesn't make sense. Because Trinitarians argue that that was a special choice of a word, Elohim, to show that God is plural. Then how come God, the same God, also makes that same word apply to Moses, who has no plurality in him? There's no 3 in 1 in Moses. So can we make a case that there was plurality in Moses? No, that is not so. That is obvious. In fact, it is somewhat nonsensical to make such a claim. 1 Samuel chapter 5, verse 7. Here, we want to focus on these words. Dagon, our God. Dagon, our Elohim. Dagon, our gods in plural. So does it mean then that, again, the God and the Bible speakers were trying to use Elohim to show us that there's plurality in Dagon? I don't think so. I don't see the special application of the word Elohim in and of itself to demonstrate any plurality in the entity that it is referring to. That doesn't exist. It's not what comes out when you look at how the word Elohim is used. In the same way, the word Elohim is used for angels and for magistrates and so forth. And again, the same argument. Why use it there if it is to express a special plurality of God? That doesn't make sense. So there's no inherent meaning of plurality in the word Elohim. Its use depends on the rules of the grammar of the language. Therefore, I urge again Pastor Papu and those who believe in this inherent plurality of the word Elohim to reconsider their position in light of this evidence, which points to the error in the understanding of the word Elohim. The third point, and the use of the word Elohim across the Bible. Pastor Babu does not consider that those are the meanings of Elohim, as we have seen. He bases his explanation on the meaning of Elohim that can support the thesis he's making, that of a plurality of persons in Elohim, in order to substantiate the Trinitarian doctrine or Trinitarian thinking. But Elohim does not apply to that. Besides, the meaning of Elohim as a plurality of persons itself is wrong. Another point is that when Pastor Papu uses one meaning of Elohim and ignores the other, he must provide justification for that choice. Otherwise, the choice he makes is arbitrary and intended to suit the thesis he's forming rather than objectively analyze the evidence that is available. My point here is, when you have three choices of a meaning of a word and you choose one and you drop two, you need to justify why you chose one other than just that's the one you like. We don't analyze evidence on the basis of what we like or what suits us. We analyze evidence on the basis of objectivity, what is correct. So he has to demonstrate why the meaning of Elohim is forced to be plural in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, when there is an alternative meaning which is singular, which makes sense within the context of Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. By the way, I didn't read Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, but it is that one which says, "Yea, O Israel, the Lord your God is one Lord." Okay, so we've gone past that. Now, the fourth point is to look at the proof text. Now, we're talking about the word Elohim. Now, we want to look at how God is expressed in different verses in the Bible using different words. Now, we can make a longer study out of this, but let's just focus on two words. El, the singular of Elohim, which is El. Apparently, the Bible uses both El and Elohim to refer to God. Not just that, El and Elohim are used interchangeably, even in one verse. Here's one, Genesis chapter 46, verse 3. "And he said, I am God, El, the God, Elohim." The same person is saying, "I am God," singular. Then the God, plural, of thy father. Again, the same thing, Genesis chapter 35, verse 1. "And God said," Elohim, God, and God, Elohim, said, "Arise, go up to Bethel, and go there and make there an altar of God, El, plural." Let me insert that for you. Sorry, that is El, singular, not plural. Okay, and this one is Elohim, plural. The same here, singular and plural. And just in case you don't know where I'm getting this El and Elohim, you can download for yourself the Eastward Bible, or you can just search it up on Google and find some dictionaries such as the Strong's Concordance. It gives you a breakdown of the whole verse if you like. There are many other examples. Probably I'll show you some of them before you come to the end of this presentation. So again, going back to our point, so we see that El and Elohim are used interchangeably, okay, because there's no intention to show any plurality in them. They're talking about one God, just one Lord. The third point, this should be the third point now, in terms of the use of the word Elohim across the Bible. Sorry, this is now proof text evidence. So proof text evidence, we're now comparing different parts of the Bible, different verses in the Bible, which are talking about the same subject. So the proof text method number 2 is this one of the Greek, where a verse in Greek, which is in Mark chapter 12, verse 29, which is the second witness to Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. And in Mark 12, verse 29, this verse, the same verse, exactly the same verse, which is in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, is quoted by Jesus and expressed in Greek. Okay. Now, when you look at that, we'll see that, first of all, Jesus makes an important point. The first of all commandments is attention to who God is. Okay, the first of all the commandments calls attention to who God is, because God is one Lord. We'll talk about one maybe in another presentation. But that's very important to remember, that everything begins with the correct understanding of who God is. You can read this in Ministry of Healing, chapter 35, page 409 to 410. Very important, very interesting point. But that is a sort of a diversion. Let's come back to the issue. The issue here is that in Greek, there's no plurality of Elohim. The word in Greek, which is used for God in Mark chapter 12, verse 29, is a straightforward, single Greek word, which is completely singular. And that's the word theos. Okay? So, in Mark chapter 12, verse 29, Christ did not use the word theoi, which is plural. Because my argument is, if Christ was to express the plurality that is given in Deuteronomy chapter 6:4 according to Trinitarians, then speaking in Greek, he should have said theoi, because that's the meaning which is equivalent to Elohim in Hebrew. But that's not what he did. Okay? What he did is he used the word theos. I have a parsing here. This is what is called parsing. A breakdown of the sentence in Greek, and you will see down here this second line from the bottom, that theoi means gods in plural. This is in John chapter 10, verse 34. I'm comparing with Mark chapter 12. And in Mark chapter 12, Jesus Christ did not use theoi, he used theos. And theoi is plural. So we see here that Jesus taught that God, the God referred to in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, is one singular, numerically singular God. Jesus' understanding of this point, the singularity of God, was given in agreement with the Jews' understanding, because the scribe who was speaking to Jesus Christ agreed with him, and Jesus Christ confirmed that the scribe was right. So the scribe confirmed that he agreed with Jesus that God was only one, and Jesus Christ confirmed the scribe that what he was saying was also right. So we see that there is emphasis that God is only one numerical singular God. But please note this point, right? Remember what we said earlier. We said that the Trinitarian argument is that the word Elohim used in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 was specially chosen to demonstrate the plurality of God. So if that word was specially chosen for that purpose, then we should apply the same logic to Mark chapter 12, verse 29, and say Jesus Christ specially chose theos instead of theoi to express the singularity of God. That is a single person that he was speaking about. Now the last point, of course, the fifth one, is on logic. Now, Trinitarians do something that's mind-boggling to me. Let me explain. If you notice carefully, the word Elohim is used only in as far as it is plural, but not according to its full meaning, that is God's. What I'm saying is, Trinitarians want to use only the fact that the word Elohim is a plural word, but they don't want to use the fact that the word Elohim means gods. They carefully avoid saying gods, even though that's the meaning of the word, according to them. They do so because they know that the implication of saying God referred to himself as gods so many times in the Bible has got the polytheistic implications, which are, of course, there in the Trinity doctrine. There's polytheism in it. And they want to avoid that. So they stay away from the full meaning of the word Elohim, but they give you the full meaning, but they don't like to use the full meaning. They say to you Elohim means gods, but then they refuse to use the word gods at the same time. This is like this. Suppose you told your friends that you do not eat milk. Unfortunately, your friends find you having breakfast and you're eating cream. When they question your claim that you do not eat milk, because they know cream is part of milk, then you say to them, no, cream is not milk. I just skimmed off the cream off the top of the milk and left the milk alone. Of course, that argument is a very lame argument and should not be taken seriously by sound thinking people. That is the same thing. The Trinitarians just skim off the word Elohim. They just skim off the plurality and that sense of there being God. But they don't want to use the word gods as they say That's what Elohim means. But maybe let us look at it this way. If the Trinitarian God calls himself gods about 2,000 times in the Bible, why would a Trinitarian not see that as polytheism, which their God is advocating for? I mean, why would one refuse that they worship more than one God if their own God is calling himself gods more than 2,000 times in the Bible? So this separation of the word from its meaning to focus only on its grammatical construction as used on the word Elohim by Trinitarians is the only one I know where anybody has ever made such an argument. The Trinitarians themselves, when they use other lexical arguments like the words echad, monogenes, allos, they take the full meaning of the word. In fact, they emphasize on the full meaning of the word. They emphasize on the full meaning of the word echad in Hebrew and the full meaning of the word monogenes, only begotten, in Greek, and they emphasize on the full meaning of the word allos, another of the same kind. They actually emphasize that this word means allos means another of the same kind. They don't just focus on allos being a masculine word. They don't focus on that. They focus on the full meaning. But when it comes to Elohim, they don't want to focus on the meaning of the word. They want to focus only on its grammatical construction. I think that is not right. They know the problem there, and they're trying to sneak out of it, and that's not right. So the use of the word Elohim in the Trinity doctrine is cunningly crafted and carefully ignoring the evidence to the contrary, and yet completely inconsistent, internally inconsistent with itself. I therefore urge Pastor Papu to consider this confused and confusing non-objective use of the word Elohim. Now, another question on logic is, who is speaking in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4? Okay, because Trinitarians want us to believe that God speaking in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 is emphasizing his plurality. In other words, he's saying, I am God and I am plural. Right? That's what he's saying. That's what he's trying to imply to us, that he is plural. So then that brings the question, which God is saying this? Which God is saying, I am plural? Because the Father cannot say I'm plural because he's not the one who is plural. He's part of the plurality. He's just a member of it. Neither is the Son or the Holy Spirit able to say, I am plural, because, well, they're part of the plurality, but they are not the plurality. So that introduces a fourth person into the Trinitarian logic, that in the Bible there are four persons who have spoken claiming to be God. And that Trinity is spoken. I think that of course is confusion. So here is the conclusion. We found the following point that contradict Pastor Papu's contradict Pastor Papu and are here presented for his consideration. Elohim, though plural in grammatical structure, has singular meaning when applied to God, the Almighty, as an expression of reverence and his strength. Number two, the use of Elohim referring to God is always with a singular sentence construction, such as ye, him, is, and so on. Elohim does not have a fixed meaning referring to God, but is used widely to refer to many entities, including Moses, Dagon, and angels. Its use is therefore subject to Hebrew grammatical rules at the time of the writers, not on the basis of inherent plurality meaning which is in the word itself, nor of any reference to the God of the Bible. It's a common word. Point number 4, Pastor Papu's choice of meaning of Elohim to apply to Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 is arbitrary and unjustified by evidence, designed to support the Trinity thesis rather than to objectively analyze the evidence. And the fifth point is, in Hebrew, both El, meaning God in singular, and Elohim, the plural form, these are used to refer to the same God interchangeably, hence ruling out the intended plurality of meaning. Point number 6, Mark chapter 12, verse 29, Jesus uses the word theos, which is singular, in place of Elohim, hence showing that Elohim is the same as theos, which is singular. Point number 7, elsewhere in their interpretation, Trinitarians consider the full meaning of words, not just the grammatical structure. They don't consider the implication of the word, they consider the actual meaning of the word. That is the logical use of words. That's what we would expect in a logical, objective way. However, On the word Elohim, Trinitarians do not apply the full meaning of the word, which is God. They see the problem of using the full meaning of gods, pointing to their polytheism. The interpretation used here is cunning, deceitful, even though it may not be intentional, and it is also confused and confusing. The last point is the idea, the eighth point is the idea of a God who said, I am plural, in Deuteronomy introduces a fourth person who claims to be God in the Bible. Therefore, I submit these points for Pastor Papu's consideration. And like I said before, in case you have some comments and feedback for me, I'll be happy to have them on this email. And having said that, I hope, time permitting, I will be able to make a video focusing on the issue of Echad and also on the issue of the pioneers of the SDA Church, where Pastor Papu made some claims that I would want to analyze. Thank you so much for listening and watching. May God richly bless you in whatever that you do. Thank you.